The morning sky above New York City changed forever when the first ship appeared. It was massive, dark as midnight, and shaped like a spear pointed at Earth's heart. Within minutes, similar ships materialized over London, Tokyo, Moscow, and every major city on the planet. The world stopped and stared upward at the impossible sight. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee in his office at Peterson Space Force Base when the alerts started screaming. His phone buzzed with emergency calls from Washington, and every screen in the building flashed red warnings. Jake had served 20 years in the military, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He watched through his window as a ship the size of Manhattan hovered silently above Colorado Springs. The aliens wasted no time with pleasantries. At exactly noon Eastern Time, every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth carried the same message. The voice was cold, mechanical, and spoke perfect English. "People of Earth, we are the Crex Dominion. Your planet has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Resistance will result in total annihilation." General Lisa Barnes burst into the Pentagon War Room where dozens of military leaders had gathered in emergency session. Her face was grim as she looked at the satellite feeds showing alien ships positioned over every continent. "How many are there?" she asked the intelligence officer monitoring the screens. 200 confirmed vessels, ma'am. Each one is roughly 3 kilometers long. Our best estimates put their combined firepower at levels we can't even calculate. Admiral Kevin Walsh studied the tactical displays with growing dread. His naval expertise meant nothing against ships that could fly through space and hover motionless in Earth's atmosphere. "What do we know about their capabilities?" he asked. A young analyst stepped forward nervously. "Sir, they demonstrated their weapons 15 minutes ago. They targeted our communications satellite over the Pacific and destroyed it with a single energy beam. The beam was so precise it didn't damage anything else in orbit. They're showing us they can hit whatever they want, whenever they want." Dr. Elena Rodriguez arrived at the emergency meeting still wearing her lab coat from the university. As Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien biology, she had spent years wondering what first contact would look like. Now she knew, and it was nothing like the peaceful scenarios she had imagined. "Have they made any other communications?" she asked. "Just the surrender demand." "They've been monitoring our radio and internet traffic since they arrived?" "Our cryptographers estimate. They learned English in under 6 hours." The intelligence officer pulled up more data. "We've tried sending messages back, but they're not responding to anything except our acknowledgement of their ultimatum." Jake Morrison's phone rang with a direct call from the president. "Captain, I need your assessment. Can we fight them?" Jake looked at the reports flooding in from around the world. Every military installation had been scanned by alien sensors. Their nuclear arsenals were cataloged, their defense systems mapped, their capabilities measured and found wanting. "Mr. President, it would be like attacking a tank with a slingshot. Our most advanced fighter jets can't even reach the altitude where their ships are hovering." In Moscow, General Dmitry Volkov was having the same conversation with Russian leadership. In Beijing, Admiral Chen Wei reported identical findings to the Chinese government. Around the world, military commanders reached the same terrifying conclusion: humanity's weapons were useless against the KREX. Dr. Rodriguez spent the next few hours analyzing every scrap of information about the aliens. Their ships used technology that defied human understanding of physics. They had materials that absorbed radar completely, energy sources that generated no heat signatures, and propulsion systems that made no sound. But what worried her most was the message itself. "They're not interested in negotiation," she told General Barnes during a secure video call. "The language they use suggests they've done this many times before. They expect immediate surrender because that's what every other species has done. What happens if we don't surrender?" Barnes asked. Elena pulled up historical examples on her computer. "Based on their message, total annihilation." "They're not bluffing, General. This is a species that has conquered 73 star systems according to our radio telescope data. They have a process, and we're just the next step in their expansion. Around the world, panic began to set in. Stock markets crashed as investors realized money meant nothing if humanity was about to be enslaved or extinct. Governments activated emergency protocols, moving leaders to secure bunkers while trying to maintain order in major cities. Religious leaders held emergency services, some calling for prayer, others declaring the arrival of Judgment Day. But something strange was happening that none of the military leaders expected. While governments and armies prepared for the worst, ordinary people were reacting differently. Social media filled with jokes about the aliens, memes comparing their ships to everyday objects, and videos of people going about their normal lives. Despite the hovering invasion fleet, Amy Chun, a 17-year-old high school student in California, posted a video reviewing the alien ships like they were a new restaurant. Okay, so the aliens get points for dramatic entrance, but honestly, their ship design is pretty basic. Like, we get it, you're scary and pointy. Where's the creativity? 2 stars out of 5? The video went viral within hours, spawning thousands of similar posts. People began treating the invasion like entertainment, creating elaborate theories about alien culture, drawing fan art of the ships, and even writing romantic stories about falling in love with alien invaders. Dan Phillips, a news anchor in Chicago, found himself covering the invasion like a sports event. And here we see the alien fleet maintaining perfect formation over downtown. You have to admire their precision, folks. These ships haven't moved a centimeter in 6 hours. That's some serious discipline. Jake Morrison watched the social media feeds with amazement. While military leaders around the world prepared for humanity's final battle, regular people were making jokes and creating art. It was the most human response possible when faced with something terrible and beyond their control. They found ways to laugh about it. The 72-hour deadline began counting down. Alien ships maintained their positions, silent and menacing against Earth's sky. In war rooms and government bunkers, leaders struggled to find any possible defense against superior technology and overwhelming force. But in coffee shops and living rooms, on street corners and in school hallways, humanity was doing what it had always done when confronted with the impossible. They were making it part of their story, finding meaning in chaos, and refusing to let fear destroy their ability to create something new from the darkest situation they had ever faced. The second day of the invasion brought something no military strategist had predicted. Instead of panic and chaos, humanity responded with creativity. Within 12 hours of the alien ultimatum, the internet exploded with content about the Kreks. Dominion that treated them like celebrities rather than conquerors. Amy Chun woke up to find her alien ship review video had been watched by 50 million people. Comments poured in from around the world, with viewers adding their own critiques of the invasion fleet. Someone in Germany posted a detailed analysis of the ship's aerodynamics, concluding they were unnecessarily dramatic. A user in Brazil created a mashup video set to carnival music, making the ominous vessels look like they were dancing. The teenager decided to make a follow-up video. She stood on her apartment balcony with one of the alien ships visible in the background. So, I've been thinking about our new alien overlords, and honestly, they're kind of boring. Like, you travel across the galaxy and the best threat you can come up with is surrender or die? That's every villain movie ever made. Where's the originality, guys? Meanwhile, late-night talk show host Jerry Kane was preparing for what would become the most-watched episode in television history. His writers had worked all night creating material about the invasion. So, aliens finally visit Earth, Jerry said during his monologue, and they want us to surrender in 72 hours. 72 hours? My cable company gives me more time. To pay my bill? The audience laughed despite the circumstances. Jerry continued, and they call themselves the Kreks Dominion. Sounds like a failed boy band from the 90s. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kreks Dominion and their hit single, "We Will Conquer You." News anchor Dan Phillips had abandoned traditional reporting entirely. His network decided to cover the invasion like an ongoing documentary about alien culture. We're now entering hour 36 of what we're calling the Great Hovering, Dunn reported from his Chicago studio. The alien fleet maintains perfect formation, leading experts to speculate about their organizational structure. Are they following a flight pattern? Is this some kind of alien traffic jam? We'll continue monitoring this developing story. The Krex monitored human communications with growing confusion. Admiral Zexthara stood in his command center, watching displays that showed Earth's internet activity. His intelligence officers had expected human morale to collapse within hours. Instead, they were documenting an unprecedented surge in creative content. "Admiral," reported his chief communications analyst, "the humans are producing what they call memes about our fleet at a rate of approximately 10,000 per hour. They appear to be using humor as a coping mechanism." Zexthara studied the examples his crew had translated. One showed his flagship with cartoon eyes and the caption, "When you realize you forgot to bring snacks for the invasion." Another depicted Krex, soldiers as confused tourists asking for directions to Earth's surrender. Department. "This is not the response we documented in previous conquests," the Admiral said slowly. "Where is their fear? Their desperation?" His tactical officer pulled up psychological profiles from their 73 previous conquests. "Sir, in every other case, the target species either surrendered immediately or engaged in futile military resistance. We have no data on a species that responds to invasion with entertainment content." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was having similar thoughts as she analyzed the aliens' communication patterns from her laboratory. She had been monitoring their transmissions and noticed something interesting. The Krex were spending an enormous amount of processing power trying to understand human social media. They were clearly baffled by humanity's response. "They don't know what to do with us," she told General Barnes during their daily briefing. "Every algorithm they have for conquest assumes their targets will behave rationally according to Krex standards, but we're not being rational by their definition." Professor Helen Brooks, a linguist who had joined the emergency response team, was studying the aliens' language patterns. "Their entire communication system is built around hierarchy and dominance," she explained. "They literally don't have words for concepts like irony or sarcasm. When humans make jokes about them, they process it as some kind of coded military intelligence." The breakthrough came when Dr. Rodriguez realized the implications. If the Krex couldn't understand human humor and creativity, it meant they had never encountered a species that used these traits as survival mechanisms. Every other civilization they had conquered must have been purely logical, responding to threats with either submission or direct confrontation. Jake Morrison was coordinating with international military leaders when he received an unusual report from his intelligence team. "Captain, we've been monitoring alien communications and something strange is happening. Their transmissions show increased confusion and decreased efficiency. Some of their ships are actually running diagnostic tests on their own equipment." "Why would they do that?" Jake asked. "Best guess? They think something is wrong with their sensors because human behavior doesn't match their predictions. They're so confused by our response that they're checking if their intelligence gathering systems are malfunctioning." Around the world, more people joined what was becoming an informal resistance through ridicule. Street artists painted murals, showing aliens confused by human customs. Musicians wrote songs about the invasion that turned the terrifying situation into comedy. Children drew pictures of friendly aliens who just needed hugs instead of conquests. A group of comedians in Los Angeles organized a comedy show specifically about the invasion. The venue sold out in minutes, with people desperately wanting to laugh about their situation. Comedian Lisa Martinez opened the show by saying, "So aliens travel millions of light years to visit us, and the first thing they say is surrender or die." I'm like, wow, you guys really need to work on your pickup lines. The show was broadcast live online and watched by hundreds of millions of people. Comments flooded in from viewers around the world, all sharing jokes and observations about their unwanted visitors. Someone in Australia noted that the aliens had been polite enough to announce their invasion during business hours in most time zones. A viewer in Canada wondered if the aliens had considered the environmental impact of their ships. Emissions. Social media platforms created special hashtags for invasion content. Hashtag AlienFail became trending worldwide as people shared increasingly creative ways to mock the Creks. Hashtag Welcome to Earth featured videos of humans explaining bizarre human customs to their theoretical alien captors. As the 48-hour mark approached, something unprecedented was happening aboard the Creks ships. Crew members were beginning to question their mission not because of human military resistance, but because of human creativity. They had never encountered a species that could transform terror into art, that could find humor in hopelessness. The most feared military force in the galaxy was discovering that their greatest weakness was not superior weapons or technology, but their complete inability to understand a species that refused to be afraid. The third day changed everything when humanity decided to fight back, but not with weapons. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Murphy walked into a room filled with an unlikely army: comedians, musicians, writers, artists, and television producers. His mission was unlike anything in military history: wage war through culture. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steve announced to the gathered creative professionals, "we're going to do something that's never been tried before. We're going to beam human culture directly into those alien ships and see what happens." Amy Chun had been invited to join the effort after her videos gained global attention. She sat next to Jerry Kane, who was still processing the surreal situation. "So let me get this straight," Jerry said. "You want us to tell jokes to aliens who are trying to conquer us?" Dr. Elena Rodriguez explained the strategy. "The Creks don't understand human creativity because they've never encountered it before. Their entire civilization appears to be built on military hierarchy and conquest. If we flood them with our art, our music, our stories, we might overload their ability to process information." Professor Helen Brooks had spent the past day working with linguists from around the world to create translation protocols. "We figured out how to convert human cultural content into frequencies the aliens can understand. Every song, every movie, every book can be transmitted directly to their ships." The plan was ambitious beyond imagination. Governments had secretly coordinated with every major broadcaster, streaming service, and internet platform on Earth. When the signal went out, it would carry the entire spectrum of human creativity directly into Creks communication systems. Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the technical aspects from Peterson Space Force Base. His team had worked with telecommunications experts to create the most powerful cultural broadcast in human history. We're talking about transmitting the complete works of Shakespeare, every Beatles song, the entire Marvel movie catalog, and thousands of hours of stand-up comedy all at once. The first transmission began at exactly midnight Greenwich Mean Time. Earth satellites redirected their signals toward the alien fleet, carrying what humanity called Operation Cultural Storm. Within minutes, every Creks ship was receiving an overwhelming flood of human art, music, literature, and entertainment. The effect was immediate and devastating. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Zex Thara watched his crew struggle to process the incoming data. Creks soldiers who had spent their entire lives following orders were suddenly experiencing concepts. They had no framework to understand communications. Officer Crickstall was analyzing what humans called a romantic comedy when something unprecedented happened. He laughed. The sound was alien and harsh, but unmistakably laughter. Other crew members stopped their duties to stare at him in confusion. "Officer Crickstall, report your status," Admiral Zex Thara commanded. "Sir, I am experiencing what humans call amusement at the illogical behavior of these fictional characters. They are pursuing romantic relationships that serve no military or survival purpose, yet I find their actions somehow pleasant to observe." Dr. Alex Turner, a military psychiatrist, monitored the psychological impact from Earth. "We're seeing exactly what we hoped for," he reported to the command team. "The aliens are experiencing emotional responses they've never had before. Their rigid military structure can't handle soldiers who are suddenly feeling things like joy, sadness, and curiosity." The broadcast included everything humanity had ever created: Krex warriors found themselves listening to Mozart symphonies and heavy metal concerts. Strategic planners were forced to analyze human philosophical debates about ethics and morality. Combat specialists discovered children's cartoons that taught lessons about friendship and cooperation. Commander Beth Williams oversaw the selection of content being transmitted. Her team had carefully chosen material that would challenge every aspect of Krex society. We're sending them our greatest love stories, our funniest comedies, our most moving dramas, and our deepest philosophical works all at the same time. The psychological warfare was working better than anyone had imagined. Across the Krex fleet, soldiers began asking questions that had never been asked in their society. One engineering team stopped maintaining their weapon systems to debate the meaning of a poem by Robert Frost. A group of tactical officers became obsessed with understanding why humans created music that served no practical purpose. Lieutenant Vexamer was studying what humans called abstract art when he experienced something that would have been impossible just days earlier: inspiration. He began creating his own patterns and shapes, driven by an urge to express something he couldn't name. When his commanding officer discovered the unauthorized creative activity, Vexamer couldn't explain why he had done it. The cultural bombardment intensified throughout the day. Earth's entertainment industry worked around the clock to create new content specifically designed to confuse and enlighten the aliens. Musicians composed pieces that combined every genre of human music. Writers crafted stories that explored themes the Krex had never considered. Artists created visual works that challenged the aliens. Understanding of beauty and meaning. Amy Chun produced a special video message directed at the Krex. "Hey, alien friends," she said, looking directly into the camera. "I know you're probably really confused right now. That's okay. Being confused is how humans learn new things. You came here expecting us to be afraid, but we'd rather show you what we create when we're not afraid. Maybe you'll like it?" Jerry Kane hosted a special broadcast called Comedy for Conquerors, featuring jokes specifically written for alien audiences. "Take my wife, please," he said, then paused. "Sorry, that joke doesn't work if you don't understand human marriage customs. Let me explain marriage to you aliens. It's when two humans voluntarily agree to annoy each other for the rest of their lives, and somehow this makes them happy." The most devastating weapon in humanity's cultural arsenal proved to be children's programming. Shows designed to teach human children about sharing, kindness, and empathy had a profound effect on Krex soldiers. One entire ship crew became fascinated with an animated series about friendship, spending hours debating why the characters helped each other without expecting military advancement. Admiral Zextara faced a crisis unlike anything in Krex military history. His perfectly disciplined force was falling apart as individual soldiers developed personal interests, emotional responses, and independent thoughts. Some crew members were creating art, others were writing what humans called poetry, and many were simply sitting quietly, overwhelmed by the complexity of human emotion. The invasion fleet that had conquered 73 worlds was being defeated by humanity's greatest weapon, the simple ability to imagine something better than conquest, and to share that vision with others who had never dreamed such things were possible. The fourth day brought complete chaos to the Krex fleet as human culture tore through their military structure like wildfire. What had started as confusion now became full psychological breakdown among soldiers who had never experienced individual thoughts or emotions. Engineer Tony Garcia led a team that was broadcasting human problem-solving techniques and innovation stories to the aliens. His background in creative engineering made him perfect for showing the Krex how humans approached challenges differently than any species they had encountered before. "We're sending them everything," Tony explained to his team. "Stories about how humans invented flight by watching birds, how we created music by experimenting with sounds, how we solve problems by trying crazy ideas that shouldn't work but somehow do." The effect on Krex engineering crews was immediate and devastating. These aliens had spent centuries following rigid technical protocols, never deviating from established procedures. Now they were seeing humans who built impossible machines through trial and error, who created beautiful art from broken materials, who found elegant solutions by thinking in ways that defied logic. Captain Nina Foster monitored alien communications. From her station at NORAD, what she discovered sent shockwaves through the human command structure. "They're not just listening to our culture anymore," she reported. "They're creating their own." The intercepted transmissions showed something unprecedented in galactic history. Individual Krek soldiers were making art, writing personal thoughts, and expressing feelings that had no military purpose. One alien had composed what could only be described as poetry about the loneliness of space travel. Another had created visual patterns that served no function except beauty. Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied these developments with growing amazement. "We've triggered an artistic renaissance among a species that has never had art before. They're experiencing creativity for the first time in their evolution, and they don't know how to handle it." The breakdown accelerated when humans began sharing their most powerful weapon, stories of compassion and sacrifice. These were concepts completely foreign to the Krek's military mindset. They heard about humans who risked their lives to save strangers, who gave up personal gain to help others, who showed kindness to enemies. Amy Chun created a video specifically about human empathy. "So here's the thing about humans," she said, sitting in her bedroom with an alien ship visible through her window. "We do this weird thing where we care about people we've never met. Like right now, I'm worried about you aliens because you seem really confused and scared. That's probably super weird from your perspective, but it's just how we are." The video was translated and transmitted to the Krek's fleet, where it caused something unprecedented. Several alien crew members began experiencing what humans would recognize as guilt about their previous conquests. For the first time in their species' history, individual Kreks started questioning whether conquest was morally acceptable. Lieutenant Crystal was among the first to break completely. He approached his superior officer with a request that had never been made in Krek's military history. "Sir, I wish to refuse my next assignment. The humans we are supposed to conquer have shown me that there are ways to live that do not involve causing suffering to others." Similar scenes played out across the entire fleet. Soldiers who had blindly followed orders for their entire lives suddenly developed personal ethical codes. Some refused to maintain weapon systems, claiming they no longer wished to participate in activities that could harm the creative beings they had been studying. Admiral Zextara faced a complete mutiny, but not the kind covered in any military manual. His crew wasn't rebelling against his authority. They were simply choosing different values. They had been exposed to human concepts of individual choice, personal responsibility, and moral decision-making. Dr. Alex Turner worked around the clock to document the psychological transformation occurring in the alien fleet. "We're witnessing the birth of individual consciousness in an entire species," he reported to the Emergency Council. "These aliens are becoming self-aware as individuals rather than just components of a military machine." The most devastating cultural weapon proved to be human children's stories. Simple tales about sharing, friendship, and helping others had a profound impact on aliens who had never heard such concepts before. One Krek's communications officer became obsessed with a story about a human child who shared lunch with a lonely classmate, spending hours trying to understand why such behavior would be considered valuable. Jerry Kane continued his nightly broadcasts, now speaking directly to the aliens he knew were watching. "I keep thinking about you folks up there in your ships," he said during his monologue. "You traveled all this way to conquer us, but now you're stuck dealing with our weird human emotions. It's like going to a restaurant and ordering conquest, but the waiter brings you feelings instead." The comedy was having an unexpected effect. Krek soldiers were developing senses of humor, learning to find joy in absurdity and beauty in the unexpected. Laughter, previously unknown in their culture, began spreading through their ranks like a benevolent virus. Professor Helen Brooks established direct communication channels with a group of young Kreks who had become fascinated by human literature. Through these conversations, she learned that the Dominion maintained control by suppressing any form of individual expression or creative thought. The exposure to human culture was literally rewiring their brains, creating new neural pathways for imagination and empathy. "They're asking me questions about the meaning of life," Helen reported to the cultural warfare team. "These are aliens who have never been allowed to wonder about anything except military efficiency, and now they want to understand poetry, philosophy, and the purpose of existence." The breakdown reached critical mass when several entire ship crews refused orders simultaneously. They weren't staging traditional military rebellions. They were simply choosing to spend their time creating art, writing stories, and discussing the meaning of beauty instead of preparing for conquest. Admiral Zexthara made a decision that would have been unthinkable just days earlier. He sent a direct communication to Earth, bypassing all military protocols. "Humans of Earth," his message began, "we have studied your culture and find ourselves changed. We request permission to learn more about your ways of living without conquest." The most feared military force in the galaxy was asking for surrender. Not to superior weapons, but to superior ideas about what life could be when it included more than just dominance and control. The fifth day brought something that had never happened in galactic history, a military force choosing to surrender, not because they were defeated, but because they had discovered something better than conquest. Admiral Zexthara's message to Earth changed everything, turning humanity from potential victims into unexpected teachers. General Lisa Barnes and Admiral Kevin Walsh found themselves preparing for negotiations, unlike any in human experience. The aliens weren't asking for terms of surrender in the traditional sense. They were requesting cultural exchange programs and asking for permission to learn how to create rather than destroy. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the communication center as Earth's leaders crafted their response to the alien request. "This is uncharted territory," he said to his staff. "We've gone from facing annihilation to potentially becoming mentors to a galactic empire." The human response was characteristically creative. Instead of demanding traditional surrender terms, world leaders proposed something unprecedented: the transformation of the Krex invasion fleet into humanity's first interstellar cultural center. The aliens would be welcome to stay and learn, but only if they completely abandoned their conquest mission. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked with Professor Helen Brooks to establish formal communication protocols with the alien fleet. The conversations that followed revealed the full scope of what humanity had accomplished. The Krex weren't just confused or temporarily disrupted. They had experienced a fundamental transformation in how they understood existence itself. "We have spent 3,000 years believing that strength came from conquest," Admiral Zexthara explained during the first formal dialogue. "Your species has shown us that true power comes from creation, from the ability to imagine something beautiful and share it with others." Amy Chun received a personal invitation to visit the alien flagship, making her the first human to board a Krex vessel. The experience was surreal beyond imagination. The ship that had been designed for warfare was now filled with aliens creating art, writing stories, and experimenting with music. They had converted weapons storage areas into studios and meditation spaces. "This is incredible," Amy said during her video tour of the ship. "They've got former weapons specialists learning to paint landscapes, navigation officers writing poetry about their home planets, and combat engineers building sculptures instead of bombs." Lieutenant Krickstall had become something like an artist in residence, creating visual works that combined alien perspective with human artistic techniques. His creations were impossible to categorize by human standards, but unmistakably beautiful. In their alien way, Jerry Kane was invited to perform his first comedy show for an alien audience. The experience was challenging since humor required cultural context the Krex were still learning, but their genuine effort to understand and appreciate human jokes was touching in unexpected ways. "So I asked my wife why she married me," Jerry said to his mixed human-alien audience, "and she said it was for my sense of humor." I said, "What sense of humor?" She said, "Exactly." The humans laughed immediately, while the Krex took several seconds to process the layers of irony before producing their harsh but genuine laughter. Dr. Alex Turner established therapeutic programs for Krek soldiers struggling with their sudden emotional awakening. Many aliens needed help processing feelings that humans developed gradually from childhood, but they were experiencing all at once as adults. Imagine someone who has never seen color suddenly seeing a rainbow, Dr. Turner explained to his human colleagues. That's what these aliens are experiencing with emotions like joy, sadness, and wonder. It's overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at the same time. The transformation wasn't limited to individual aliens. The entire Krek's fleet began restructuring itself from a military force into something resembling a floating university. Ships that had carried weapons of mass destruction now housed libraries, art studios, and performance spaces. Engineer Tony Garcia worked with alien technical specialists to repurpose their advanced technology for creative rather than destructive purposes. They have energy manipulation systems that can create any color or pattern imaginable, he explained excitedly. We're helping them use it to make light sculptures and holographic art installations. Captain Nina Foster monitored communications as the Krek sent messages back to their home empire. The content was revolutionary. Field reports about the beauty of creation, philosophical treatises on the meaning of art, and personal letters describing the joy of individual expression. The response from the Kreks Dominion was predictable: confusion, anger, and demands for Admiral Zexthara to complete his mission immediately. But something unprecedented happened when the message arrived. The Admiral, supported by his entire transformed fleet, formally refused orders from his superiors for the first time in Krek's military history. We have found something more valuable than another conquered world, Zexthara transmitted back to the Dominion. We have found a species that can teach us how to be more than warriors. We choose to remain and learn. Professor Helen Brooks worked with teams of human and alien linguists to document this historic moment. We're witnessing the birth of the first truly peaceful contact between species, she said. Not peace through victory or defeat, but peace through mutual understanding and cultural exchange. The story reached its conclusion when Amy Chun, the teenager who had started everything with a simple video review, found herself addressing a joint human-alien assembly. A week ago you came here to conquer us, she said to the gathered Krek's representatives. Instead, you discovered that the best way to win is to create something beautiful together. The former invasion fleet became Earth's first embassy to the stars. Alien ships that had been designed to destroy worlds now served as cultural exchange centers, research facilities, and art galleries. Humans and Kreks worked together on projects that neither species could have imagined alone. The final image was of Admiral Zexthara, once the commander of the galaxy's most feared military force, working alongside human children in an art class. His clawed hands struggled with human painting techniques, but his alien features showed something that had never existed in his species. Before, pure joy in creative expression, Earth's real weapon had never been technology or military might. It was humanity's simple refusal to accept that conquest was inevitable, their insistence that there was always another way, and their generous willingness to share the most powerful force in the universe, the ability to imagine that tomorrow could be better than today and to work together to make it happen.